I'm going to go off of a limb here and assume that a large majority of you have heard of League of Legends. It's a massively successful game that has been at the top of the gaming world for the last 15 years. It's also infamous for having a stupendous amount of degenerates plaguing its player base. And I have never played it. I've never been against it, but it just never looked like the thing for me. So one day, when my girlfriend asked me if I wanted to watch the League of Legends show because it was apparently winning a lot of rewards, I thought about it for a second and said, yeah, I'm not interested. Fast forward roughly 2 years, and after putting it off this entire time, I finally cracked. I agreed to watch the dumb League of Legends show. And oh my god, this show is absolutely incredible. I had heard that the show was good, but in all honesty, I thought it was bullshit. I figured it was just the fan base overhyping it, or Netflix just artificially pushing it out so they could make more cash. But no, I was wrong. And I would go as far as to say that this show gets underrated when talking about how well written it is. When I look around the YouTube and TikTok media realm, some common shows are always in the discussion for the best show of all time, or at least the cream of the crop of TV. You hear about The Sopranos, Breaking Bad, the prime of Game of Thrones, Sons of Anarchy, Mr. Robot, and a few others. But in all honesty, I think Arcane needs to be in this discussion. If I were held at gunpoint and forced to nominate a contender for potentially the greatest show of all time, I would put all of my chips down on Arcane. For two main reasons. The impeccable cast of characters and a plot that has actual consequences. In every TV show I've seen, there's always a bad character. There's always a Marie or a Theon, and hell, even in a show like The Sopranos, there's a Janice. But not Arcane. There isn't a single bad character in this show. Every single main character and side character have a fleshed out arc, interesting interactions, great dialogue, and realistic relationships with one another. To start off my list of praises, we have Violet, who is a great example of what you can do with a hot-headed brawler trope, but make them realistic. Jace, who is a perfect example of a golden boy who's slowly starting to spill over due to a thin layer of peace he's trying to protect. Victor, who has a beautiful story that questions how far science should be allowed to go. Vander, who's basically just a better written Joel. Camille, who starts off as a run-of-the-mill manipulator and ends up being a genuine complicated character. Hybridinger, who learns what the consequences of inactions can be. And many, many more. And I could go into every single character here, but I think you guys get the point. Everyone is so well written. Even quote-unquote weaker written characters such as Caitlyn or Marcus end up having full arcs that are super understandable, tragic, and shockingly relatable. And somehow, as if this wasn't enough, it gets even better. You see, there are two characters in the show that shine even brighter than the rest. Silco and Jinx. Throughout Arcane, Silco is just the absolute worst. The crimes that he commits on a daily basis include, but are not limited to, drug trafficking, extortion, murder, kidnapping, bribery, and much, much more. This is a man who wants what he wants, and there's no line he won't cross in order to obtain what he desires. Except for one. there is one line that he won't cross, but we'll get into that a little later. There is nothing sympathetic about this man, at least at face value. He's a vile monster that isn't even against killing children if need be. But that's not all he is. You see, Silco's rage has one fatal flaw. One chip in his armor that truly stops him from just being a complete, unreachable monster. He's a father. He's a man that loves his daughter and will do anything for her. She is the one line that he will not cross. And this humanizes him in a way that I didn't even think was possible. Through all the manipulation, stealing, and ruthless willingness to act, when push came to shove, Jinx was the one line Silco couldn't cross. Selling out his own daughter was just too much of a price to pay. And to make matters even better, his daughter, Jinx herself, is even more complicated than him. Jinx is just my favorite female character of all time. She's complex, damaged, haunted, and unfathomably unpredictable. A lot of people would rush to call her a Harley Quinn trope, but in all honesty, I think the trope needs to be renamed the Jinx trope, because she's way better written than Harley Quinn. Jinx is a character study on what can happen to a person if war, suffering, and hate bears down on them at a young age. In most stories, characters that experience tragedy at a young age usually end up with good moral compasses and try to use the pain that they've experienced for good. And while this can be fun to watch and motivating at times, I find it to be just far too idealistic. And this is what separates Jinx from the rest. She is not okay. She suffers from anxiety, depression, severe detachment issues, bipolar disorder, and much, much more. And this is shown through everything. Her line delivery, her sporadic eye movements, her drawings that seem to have no start or end, and more than anything, how unpredictable her emotional state is. Jinx is honestly terrifying. She's one of the few characters whose actions you can just never predict. You never know when she's just gonna pop up and ruin something, or just how far she's willing to go to get what she wants. She's the physical manifestation of all of the hate that the Undercity has experienced. And she's a phenomenally well-written character that deserves way more praise than she currently gets. The next aspect about Arcane that I truly believe makes it stand out is the fact that actions have consequences. In a world full of multiverses where anyone can just come back from the dead and nothing ever really matters, Arcane sets a different standard. Every action has a consequence. And I'm going to give you a prime example of what I mean. In most media, when a group of characters are in danger and a friend throws a bomb at the bad guys, what usually happens, at least in any big blockbuster in the last 20 years, is the bad guys get blown away, and the good guys are somehow all magically okay. It's super unrealistic and falls apart the moment you think about it logically. So with that in mind, let's look at the exact same scenario, but in Yeah, everyone gets blown to Kingdom Come. It's brutal, bloody, and unbiased. True and utter chaos. And this occurs multiple times throughout Arcane, with Jinx herself being the perpetrator of many different terrorist attacks that are unbiased in who they affect. With the most important one happening at the end of Season 1, where she fires a Hextech-enhanced missile straight at the Capitol building, where all of the important council members are discussing what to do about the Undercity. And while the consequences of this action have yet to be revealed to us, because of the context we have had with similar situations in Arcane itself, I have no doubt that Season 2 will start with a bloody, hellish mess created by Jinx herself. I once heard the phrase, having teeth, and what it basically means is when a show isn't scared of getting some blood on its hands for the sake of giving you realistic stakes. And Arcane has this in spades. Arcane is one of a kind. It's a show that exceeded all of my expectations. It's a show that has a phenomenal cast, great animation, phenomenal acting, and real stakes. It's a type of show that I've been waiting for. It's the show that I've been asking for, and I am just so glad my girlfriend convinced me to watch this show because it has just taken over my life. And all I can really say is, for the dumb League of Legends show that I never wanted to watch, I just can't wait for Season 2.